Whoa, Nelly. We are finally back, aren't we? I'm asking you a question.
We are.
Yes, we are back. Hello, boys and girls. You are now listening to episode 20 of the Neu Daye Podcast after a quite lengthy, what would you call hiatus? Another lengthy hiatus since the last time we were able to give you a podcast because of my punk ass and my little I wouldn't say escapade of sorts. What are you tweeting right now?
Huh?
You're tweeting right now? I'm getting all these fucking tweets.
You can hear it. Yeah. I just tagged you a tweet before saying that we were recording a Neu Daye podcast. I didn't expect to hear that in the background.
No, I know, right? It just went off right then. Well, anyway, I over the last couple of weeks,
I was like, wait a minute, is that my phone? Because I just silenced mine, but
no, it was
that's funny.
It came right through. So I've been on a crazy escapade with my little T-shirt business thing that I've started. And for those who are listening and, you know, keeping up with Peter and Jake Talks Wrestling, keeping also up with Peter Talks SmackDown, that I do apologize for not giving you your favorite podcast over the past couple of weeks. How are you, Nathan?
I am good. Been watching a lot of wrestling per the usual. I watch Raw still weekly, but it's painful to get through, and I mean we'll get to that later. But it's like, and then just life in general has been pretty crazy. So,
and it crazy in a good or bad way?
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Is there there a chick? Is there a chick involved?
No.
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 Is there ever a chick involved?
Got a new manager at work in early December. She's not new to the store, but she's new to the role of management. The old manager left, which is a good thing. But then just some personal things have just been happening that I really don't want to talk about on the air.
Well, you brought it up, bro.
No, I know, but I'm just like, I'll talk. I can talk after we got off the air, but I'm not willing to talk about it on the air. But
it's all good. We'll definitely have time to talk. So, all right, outside of, I guess, your new work situation and management, give me your best and worst since we've spoken, man.
The best would be the fact that I'm kind of checked out of WWE, and it's allowed me to watch other things like New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I just started writing. In addition to my role in Eyes on the Ring, I started writing for a website called WrestlingHeads.com, where I will be doing a weekly lucha match or watching a lucha match and reviewing that from CMLL, because my goal in that it was to not only help out WrestlingHeads.com, but to watch more lucha, not just Lucha Underground, because Lucha Underground's great, but it's not true lucha in my eyes. And I'm kind of checked out of AAA because I just don't care about them anymore. So it's CMLL. It's something that I've always wanted to watch. And now it's giving me an excuse to actually do it. So
was that a good or worse? What are you explaining here?
That's the good part about the week. The bad part is just I don't really have a bad part. Just anything that has to do with WWE right now, because I'm just so checked out of the product and with what happened last Monday. And it's just the only reason why I watch WWE at this point is because I write for a website and I do a podcast. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't even bother.
We'll definitely go into that when we get to the WWE part of this conversation. But What is your worst?
I just pretty much.
So it's like your best and worst was basically two birds in one stone.
No, my best was like the CMLL stuff and writing for Wrestling Heads. My worst is the state of WWE and the product and the fact that I just don't care.
Okay. My best, I would say, what's been happening with my T-shirts over the past couple of weeks. Good and bad. All we had to do was win a fucking Super Bowl, and I think all of my shirts would be sold. Well, but, all in all, I only made like 350 of the Carolina Panthers design that I had was like the use of the periodic table and making Cam Newton, Luke Kuechly, Jonathan Stewart, and Greg Olson like elements. And I went to Charlotte and was selling those. People were in love with them. And then all we had to do was like win the Super Bowl, and all like 350 shirts would be gone. I was only able to sell, I would say, 250. I was able to sell like a little over 250 shirts, which obviously it's success. But I had some more to sell to actually break profit because I was selling them way cheaper and giving some away more than I was selling them at cost. What to make an actual profit, but I don't care. It was the adventure. I'd never done anything like that before, and it was encouraging, very encouraging. But we lost the Super Bowl. That sucked. So that project is over until the NFL season comes up. But that was definitely a best. On top of the idea that I'm 3 months into not having a cigarette, which is
good for you.
Which is also great. I'm trying to think. I'll just leave it at that in terms of like my best. My worst, I would say, all this Daniel Bryan talk and him having to retire. That's definitely a bummer. I've spent the past couple of weeks like watching old Daniel Bryan like sort of segments and matches and stuff, and just to know that he's not going to be able to capitalize on his hard work as long as he's been, he's put in so much hard work to where he gets to the sweet spot of his career where shit really goes down, he's going to miss it. He's not going to be able to get that, late 30s push in his career, which I feel is it definitely sucks. And if we were to transition another worst, and I'm not going to say necessarily a worst, but it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. I watched the New Japan beginning in Osaka last night. Jake wanted to review it for Peter and Jake Talks Wrestling. And I wish we wouldn't, honestly.
It's funny. I watched the New Beginning in Osaka. I watched Ishii match, and then I watched the main event of Goto and Okada.
That's the only thing
and
we're watching.
That's all I watched.
Because honestly, that was.
And then from the Nagata show, the only thing I watched was Tanahashi and Kenny Omega.
See, that's the thing too. I haven't seen that one. I just saw, and that's
that one for the Intercontinental title.
Yeah,
I won't spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it unless you already know.
Yeah, the bulk of us already know. I mean, we're far beyond spoilers at this point. Kenny Omega is now the new Intercontinental champion.
Yep.
Yeah. I haven't even seen the match. So if you're talking that is probably the only match really worth seeing, then I probably won't even watch it. The Osaka show, again, it's not a worst. It falls into the worst category because I was so underwhelmed by it. I was sitting here watching it, and I'm like, these motherfuckers are still mourning over the Shinsuke Nakamura leaving. I mean, you can see it. It's like they were waiting for something extra, waiting for something, and it wouldn't come because they were just still not over Shinsuke leaving. And
you're talking about the fans or the people
like,
within the company?
I feel like the overall, what's the word I want to use? Morale in both the fans and the promotion. You know, and you talk about Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson. That was their last match with New Japan as well, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, so you're talking about some huge hits and this sort of mourning. I mean, I could just see it. I went to the I mentioned something on the sound board. I mean, the message board of Solid Monster Sound Off, and I mentioned, like, was anyone else underwhelmed? And everyone was kind of coming up with excuses. I mean, the people who actually respond, one person was like, yes, you're the only one, because heaven forbid you say something wrong about, like, one of these darling indie promotions or what have you.
New Japan is not an indie.
I know, but, like, they're not WWE, so I just consider anything below WWE, just broad stroke of the brush, I just call them an indie. But you can't say anything bad about them. I understand that the work rate is pretty high, and you got some pretty cool characters, and it gives a big fight feel. But they don't hit home runs every time, just like any other wrestling promotion. Whether it's ROH and what they did for the All Star Extravaganza, I mean, that was a dud. You look at, I think the NXT London show was a dud.
I don't.
Yeah, I think it was a dud. And and you look at last year's SummerSlam was a dud, and then Survivor Series was kind of a dud as well. But you just can't always win when it comes to these fucking things. And I don't know how much more you want to talk about it, because I mean we're going to give a review on it, but I just go, you hit it right on the nose with Ishii and Shibata. Fucking, they lived up the expectations. It's like, my God.
Yeah. I thought that match was better than the match that they had at Wrestle Kingdom 10. I honestly thought it was, and it was very, very good, and it's one of the only two matches that you really need to see on that New Beginning show. Yeah,
other than the title change of it was a couple of title changes. You had the new junior tag team champions are Seidel and Ricochet. The new never tag team,
never 6-man, or is it?
Yeah, the never 6-man with what? No, yeah.
The never 6-man open weight tag team champions.
Yeah, that changed hands, didn't it? Yeah, and then
I believe so. Yeah,
and then also Amna and Makabe. Didn't they lose too?
I'm not sure because I didn't see that match.
Okay, because
like I said, I only watched 2 matches from the Osaka card and then 1 match from the Nagata card.
Okay, because I think they went up against Naito and them, maybe. Well, anyway, I was happy to see Naito. I love his character. Naito's a dangerous man.
Did you watch the Okada and Goto match?
I did.
Were you as underwhelmed about that match as I was?
They played it like a symphony, man. I don't know how much you listen to classical music, but I love classical music. And it reminded me of...
I don't at all.
Yeah, it reminded me... I guess if there's any music nerds out there, it reminded me of Beethoven's 7th and 9th, where the different... What Beethoven did and how he revolutionized classical music is that when classical music used to start off real big, like that was like the thing. It was like, like that's how you started, and then you sort of dipped into like the theme of the song, and then you have different movements inside the orchestration. But Beethoven's 7th and 9th, they start off real quiet, like super, super quiet, to where you think you don't even hear anything, and then it builds, 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 and by the end, when everything's shit hits the fan, it's very short-lived, and it leaves you with much more to sort of desire. That's what this match was to me. I think the build to get to like when the shit really starts to hit the fan, it takes way too long. I mean, way too long. And then when it really hits, when the shit starts popping off and reversals and high spots and, you know, the holds and the reversals and all that stuff start kicking in, it only lasts less than 5% of the entire match, you know?
There was one part in the match where I noticed where I can't remember if Goto had Okada on the ground and had him in like a headlock or a chin lock or something like that, or if it was the other way around where Okada had Goto in a chin lock, but they both looked bored out of their mind.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I was too. It's like I wanted this match to mean more to me personally, but it just something wasn't there.
I just feel like Goto was just not I don't take Goto as a threat to Okada. I just don't. You look at Tanahashi, right? And like their matches. And who was before then? Who did Okada face before Tanahashi and Wrestle Kingdom?
The last 2 years, it's been Okada, Tanahashi.
But it wasn't Naito in there or Kushida?
Wrestle Kingdom 8, the main event. Wrestle Kingdom 8, the main event was Naito versus
Dominion.
Okada.
I'm talking about Dominion or.
No, I don't know. I just got New Japan World recently, so.
Yeah, last year's Dominion was. I'm trying to think who it was, but nevertheless, it's just kind of hard to.
I did watch Dominion. I just can't remember who he faced.
Yeah, I think. It's going to hit me in a... No. Was it... Wait. Didn't he defeat AJ Styles?
That might have been it.
Yeah. So, between the AJ Styles matches that he had and Tanahashi, you just go like, wow, like who else could actually pose a legitimate threat that you could actually invest in, like... the emotion of, say, Okada's character and whoever he's facing. I thought him wearing...
Yeah, it was Okada. It was Okada and Tanahashi. Okada and Styles. And that show took place on July 5th, 2015.
Yeah, and I go, well, who else can you invest into? And they tried to do the whole Goto thing. Goto lacks charisma. He lacks a lot of things. They try to make it seem kind of like really real, like tabloidish kind of stuff. But it wasn't much left to desire. And say the last 5 minutes of that match were really good. But he just gets floored. You know, Goto goes down in flames. And now it's just time to move on for Okada and just go like, ugh, was this like? I mean, I don't know the legacy of like the pay-per-views, but where does New Beginnings stand in terms of, I guess, categorizing which pay-per-views or which special events are higher or lower, the ones with higher expectations or lower expectations going into?
It would be a B show because New Beginning is exactly what it sounds like. It's a new beginning for the promotion because it's pretty much like a reset after Wrestle Kingdom.
Almost like what is after WrestleMania?
Raw?
No, man, the next pay-per-view.
Extreme Rules.
Yes, but Extreme Rules are normally good. They're as good as it's basically WrestleMania Take 2, but
I disagree.
Okay.
There's some things on like an Extreme Rules pay-per-view that I do find that I like, but there are some things that are very, very dreadful. So it's very hit and miss, for me at least, as far as like, even like in the Attitude Era when you had like WrestleMania and you followed it up with Backlash, there was a lot of stuff, especially if you look at the Attitude Era now and how badly it's aged, there's a lot of stuff that just wasn't that good.
Yeah.
And that's just what you're going to get with a pay-per-view or a special event that's like a reset.
Well, I would say this. The last two, what the hell are they called? Say the name again, the one after WrestleMania?
Extreme Rules.
Extreme Rules. The last two have been awesome. I admit, man, like to be a reset, to basically be the version of the New Beginning for say New Japan. That's what this is for WWE. I'm not saying it's the greatest, but man, Extreme Rules last year, hands down, could have been the best pay-per-view after WrestleMania that year, that calendar year.
Well, that's because it's the only pay-per-view after WrestleMania.
No, I'm not saying after Wrestle. I'm talking about like all the rest of them after WrestleMania. Stop making it sound like I'm an idiot. Like all the rest, from SummerSlam to Survivor Series, even to the Royal Rumble, like to a certain extent. Like if I was to look back at any other pay-per-view outside of WrestleMania, Extreme Rules was damn good. Probably the best of them. The sleeper is like the dark horse of the pay-per-view cycle for WWE. And it's only been around for how long? It hasn't been around for that long.
I believe it started in maybe 2000. Well, actually, I take that back. It's been, if you count the One Night Stand pay-per-views, it's been around since 2005. Okay. Because One Night Stand eventually turned into Extreme Rules.
But I'm just talking about when they finally started calling it Extreme Rules.
2007.
Yeah. That was like when I started watching wrestling again. So 9
years. It's been a while.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still pretty young as a pay-per-view. I
disagree
because it's still in the 2000s. I still consider it pretty young. 9 years. Anyway,
9 years is a long time for wrestling, man.
Yeah, sorta. I don't know. I think for an event when you got your Survivor Series and your WrestleManias that's been around for like 20 years, longer than that, like 30, 40 years. I just look at if you're within 9 years, like within 10 years, I still consider you a young event because these events come and go nowadays, fucking with the WWE and their pay-per-view cycles. So let's move on to Daniel Bryan.
All right.
I know we've spoke about. I know you probably spoke about it on Eyes on the Ring to death, and you've heard me.
Well, we talked about because last night was the first Eyes on the Ring show since the Daniel Bryan retirement, so we talked about it in great length yesterday.
Yeah. So I didn't get to listen to that episode, unfortunately. What is your take on this whole thing? Because you hear, you listen to other podcasts, whether it's Stone Cold Steve Austin, or Jim Ross, Solomon Sounds Off, or whatever, or even like PW Torch. I don't know if you listen to them.
A bunch of podcasts I don't even listen to.
What's that?
You just named a bunch of podcasts I don't even listen to.
Yeah, I listen to the Solomon Sounds Off.
I can't stand Solomonster.
That's fine. I listen to Solomon Sounds Off. I listen to Jim Ross Report. I listen to the Stone Cold podcast. He's had some crap on there recently. I haven't really been checking for, but
he's got a live special on the network tonight.
I know. I saw that. Then you have. I also listen to PW Torch is the one I'm listening to the most, and then there's Shake Them Ropes. And everyone has their individual. I feel like when they're more towards like the Smart Mark conversation, say with PW Torch or say Shake Them Ropes, which is funny because I listened to a pay-per-view and I remember watching it on YouTube and you were the first caller.
VOW Live.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty funny. I was like, damn, what the hell Nathan, what the fuck Nathan doing? But
yeah, I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of Shake Them Ropes. In fact, and I'll get to it at the end of the show, but I've also started listening to Voices of Wrestling as well.
Okay, I need to start.
Voices of Wrestling is, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they can talk for a long, long time. Their podcasts are like 4 hours long.
See, I can't fuck with podcasts that long. I mean, you give me an hour, maybe. I mean, as long as I only want to listen to a podcast as long as mine are, anything exceeding maybe 130, 145, I check out after a while.
Eyes on the Ring is 3 hours.
Yeah.
But we don't have to go 3 hours. It's just we always end up going 3 hours.
Well, you got a lot of people
because we have a
talking
lot
on there.
of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but if you listen to last night's show, it was mostly me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't. I'll check it out sometime this week. But I guess the point I'm making is going into this is that we all have our different takes. When you're more towards, say, the people who are in the business and been there for a while, they're more or less dismissive about the conspiracy theories and any other kind of theories that's out there about Daniel Bryan, possibly this being a work or the fact that he was...
If you think it's a work, you're dumb.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying.
Anybody thought it was a work, you're dumb.
I'm just throwing it out there. Right?
No, I know. I'm not saying you're saying that you thought it was a work. I'm just saying if anybody thinks it was a work, they're stupid.
Hey, you never know with wrestling. I'm just saying. I'm just putting it out there. I'm going to go down the list. The people that think it's work, people who think that Mr. Maroon and him trying to save his ass played into the decision of not clearing Daniel Bryan when other places have cleared him. You also have the Roman Reigns, the protection of Roman Reigns theory. I have my own theory about the Daniel Bryan thing. So go into it.
I feel that they will not clear him because they do not want another
Benoit?
They don't want another Benoit, and they don't want another Dr. Aston situation where Dr. Aston was Benoit's doctor, and he's been in jail since he got convicted, and he's serving a 10-year sentence, and he will not get out until next year, I believe.
So Aston, I know nothing about him serving time. Why did he go to jail?
He was illegally prescribing people drugs.
Oh.
And that's one of his clients or one of his patients was Chris Benoit. So they looked into it, and he went on trial, and they found him guilty of doing all this stuff because the drugs that he was prescribing to people was stuff that can hurt you in the long term. So they found him guilty, and they sentenced him to 10 years in jail.
Well, I'll be damned.
And from what I know, he'll be out of jail next year.
Okay.
Sometime.
He's probably just at a Fed. He's probably at like a fucking hotel resort. But here's the thing. I feel like it's a lot all in one because one of the discussions that I had not only with say what I do with Peter's Raw Recap, even with Peter and Jake Talks Wrestling, is that this is such new charted waters in terms of this open discussion about concussions and real life injuries in the realm of professional sports. I mean, you talk about the concussion thing. This is new. Like, this is the new conversation in sports, right? Ever since
CTE.
Huh?
CTE, yeah.
Yeah. This is like
ever since Junior Sal, I believe.
Yeah, that was only like what, 2 years ago?
Something like that.
Yeah, so that's crazy. Dr. Maroon was part of this cover up, right?
That's him too, yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Maroon was definitely part of the cover up. But if we're looking into the world of wrestling, we're not invested into wrestling for real life situations. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't tune in to wrestling like we tune in for any other professional athletics.
Well, Total Divas exists, so there's that. But go on.
But you talk about baseball and what happens with concussions and injuries there. Like it plays into the game plan of said team or say said team that they're going up against. Football, basketball. This is all game preparation. And then when you go into the injuries of the actual person and the long-term effects, you take your Derrick Roses, right? You take your who else is? You take the wide receiver. He was for the Patriots. Did he play for the Broncos? He didn't play this year. What the hell is his name? But he got hit with so many concussions, and we don't deal with that. Wes Welker. And then we talk wrestling. It's like now we're having this open conversation about concussions and CTEs in the world of professional wrestling. And it's new charted territory. We're not supposed to have this conversation ever, because wrestling is what it is. It is a work. So anything that's thrown out, whether it's an engagement, a marriage, an injury, a fake injury, this, that, and the other, hell, even during a match, part of a gimmick is to fake an injury to win sympathy over the babyface and then sort of take advantage.
Yeah.
So moving forward, say from the indies, so the locals overseas up to the WWE, we're having this brand new conversation, and I don't know, or even dealing with, say, people moving forward, because it's one thing for Sami Zayn, right, to have like a fucked up shoulder, or John Cena to have a fucked up shoulder, or Randy Orton to have a fucked up shoulder, or to have neck problems.
Cesaro to have a fucked up shoulder.
Yeah, right.
I don't know what's going on with shoulder injuries, but there's a shit ton of them.
Well, it just goes to show how much, or the shoulder is used. And the wear and tear on these people, because again, I can see Sami Zayn having a problem with his shoulder because in the indies he works a harder style, very much like Daniel Bryan, and why he has to take a bow so early. I mean, the wear and tear on his body is ridiculous. And people in the WWE, even though they wrestle a lot, they have a 300-day calendar.
305, I believe.
Yeah, the way that you wrestle in the WWE, you really don't sustain a lot of wear and tear as much as, say, somebody, wrestling in ROH. That's
because they've really dumbed it down. And if you look at the difference between WWE, once you get to WWE, and Triple H has said this, you don't have to do as many things. Whereas if you're on the indies, you do so many things to get noticed by WWE. But what some of these guys don't realize is that once you get to WWE, you need to tone down your style and stop doing all this shit that got you noticed, because you're already there.
Yeah. But again, you have the Daniel Bryan sort of philosophy where this is my art. The ring is my canvas. So why am I going to make a lesser painting than what I'm already, used to? And that boils down into the fans and the expectation of the fans. Like quickly, like I remember reading something on a message board, one of the wrestling boards, and he was complaining about how AJ Styles' match versus Jericho Part 1 was so watered down, and that like this is the worst match I've ever seen, right? And I go in my head, I'm like, please tell me this guy doesn't expect him to come over and wrestle Chris Jericho like he's wrestling Shinsuke Nakamura. Or he's wrestling fucking Kenny Omega. Like you're out of your mind if you're thinking that's going to come over. Be happy that he's able to scale down his work rate so you can actually see more of him moving forward. He continued that style for another 2-3 years, then his career is ending faster than it needs to be. And I remember, and someone posted something on Instagram, and it was a reverse Frankensteiner. It was a PWG spot. And it was a reverse Frankensteiner on the apron, right?
Oh, God.
You know the spot I'm talking about?
Yeah, well, no, I don't know what spot you're talking about, but I cringe just by hearing it because apron spots need to stop. Ever since that pile driver that Michael Bennett gave to BJ Whitmer, that almost fucking paralyzed that guy, they need to stop doing apron spots.
Well, this spot, and I he posted it, and I was like, wow, so excellent, and I go, man, that was recklessly stupid, He responds to me is like, it's wrestling, get over it. I go, dude, you're the photo of your Instagram, when people look at your photo, like the one, what do they call that?
Your avatar?
Your avatar is Daniel Bryan, you jackass. This is stupid. Like, I don't understand why these wrestlers are fucking killing themselves for people like him because they feel that if they don't like damn near kill themselves, that they're not then they're dumbing down their style, or they're watering down their style, or they're not as into the art of wrestling as, say, someone who works a very general WWE style. You know what I'm saying? It boggles the imagination to where even when you take a person like Daniel Bryan, and I stand back, I go, man, he was being smart, right? I do factor in the Roman Reigns factor. I do factor that in. I most certainly do. Not to a piece of the pie, not like a majority of the pie. And I factor in Maroon trying to cover his ass. But man, if the demand that we as fans ask of these wrestlers versus the real effects that go into them killing themselves, I think is a detriment to the wrestling industry. And you will keep seeing apron spots. And you're going to keep seeing fucking like ridiculous high spots and spot monkey fest stuff to where, you know, these matches are no longer matches. They're like fantasy ballet.
Yeah.
And this is wrestling. It's like, no, it's not.
That's the worst chant ever, by the way. This is wrestling, and then this is awesome chants need to fucking die.
We're going to get more Daniel Bryans. And we're going to get more like shoulder injuries and neck injuries. You look at Tyson Kidd, and you look at, you know, Nikki Bella, you know? You look at, and even before then, you look at Stone Cold Steve Austin. You look at, I think even the first concussion thing that I remember actually being a big deal, and I think they swept that under the rug and made it to more of a storyline, was when Goldberg kicked the living shit out of Bret Hart.
Are you talking about the steel the spear with the steel plate in Toronto?
Was that? Because it was actual match. It wasn't like a segment, because I feel like
Oh, no, I know what you're talking about. Starrcade 99, when Goldberg kicked Hart in the face and gave him a concussion.
It ended his career.
It ended his career.
Yeah.
But Not right away, but his last match was on June 7th, 2000 on Nitro, on an episode of Thunder against Booker T. Don't ask me how I know that, but I do.
Could you honestly believe something like that happening today? Knowing that
they just sweep something under the rug like that?
Well, knowing that this guy has a injury such as a concussion, like a straight kick to the head, like your career's over, but you're going to get one more match. Like what?
I couldn't because, okay, check this out. I don't know if you know anything about the Bret Hart situation back then, but he was on a shoot interview with RF Video, and this is before Rob Feinstein did what he did, and when I would still buy his tapes and stuff. Now I will not bother because of I'm not going to get into it. I don't know if you know that story or not, but Bret Hart talks about the match in the shoot interview, and he says that Goldberg kicked him in the face with a full extended leg, didn't bend the knee. He elbowed him in as hard as he could in the head, and it created a nerve or a hole in a nerve in his neck. And then he wins the WCW World title in a schmoz of a finish. And then he goes back to the locker room. The doctor gives him 2 Advils. He takes the Advil. He drives to his hotel. He stumbles through the lobby up to his room, passes out with all his clothes on. And then he thankfully woke up the next day. Because you're not supposed to go to sleep 24 hours after you have a concussion. Because you could die.
Yeah.
But that's how wrestling was back then compared to how it is now.
It's kind of still is.
If Bret Hart, well, yeah, but if Bret Hart was around and if that would have happened to Bret Hart and they had like WWE's doctors and the way they do things now,
lawsuit,
that wouldn't have happened.
It would have been the biggest lawsuit in professional wrestling history. You would have had so many people involved in this. and you would have this would be in front of a. You think the steroid issue was horrible? You know, the steroid thing, and like going to Supreme Court. This would like completely make the steroid trial look like, I don't know, like People's Court. Because it's just so this concussion stuff, and it's like we got to get used to this as wrestling fans. We're gonna have more Daniel Bryans, we have more edges. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna have these people who ceremoniously have to stop because they will die if they don't. And these are serious issues that from the head honcho, the top of the totem pole of the wrestling world being WWE, down to, say, your local wrestling, spot around the corner, which would be CWF for me or PWX. What is your local wrestling promotion where you're from?
I don't have one.
There's not one around. What's the closest one?
There isn't one.
At all?
No. There's like spot shows and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
But we don't have. There's nothing in Minnesota anymore.
Wow, that's so hard to believe. Especially like being such a I guess, legendary territorial area.
There's nothing in Minnesota, and in fact, quick side story, and I'm not going to try to make this really long, but the main company, indie company, when I was like back in 2004, was a company called Midwest Pro Wrestling, and we started a backyard promotion called Northern Impact Wrestling, and the goal with that was to basically be as big as Midwest Pro Wrestling. Well, the funny story is the company that I helped start, Northern Impact Wrestling, eventually became what Midwest Pro Wrestling was, because the two companies converged and made one big super company. But then Northern Impact Wrestling closed in 2008. So ever since 2008, there really isn't anything that you can really go to on, say, like a Saturday night or whatever to check out. The independent wrestling days in Minnesota are very, very dried out.
Damn.
Like the last show I went to was a company called Born Champions Wrestling, and it was one of Jerry Lynn's last matches. And then I went to, on March 23rd of 2013, that was Jerry Lynn's retirement show, the last effing show. And I can't remember who produced. Well, I know who produced the show. It's the same guy that I won't buy DVDs and videos from. But the company, there was no company attached to that show. It was a one-off. But if I want to go do a wrestling show, or if I want to go see a wrestling show, I have to drive 10 hours to North Dakota. And it's not something I'm willing to do.
I bet. So I guess the point I was making was, I know that there's kids that wrestle for PWX, and there's kids that wrestle for CWF, Mid-Atlantic, South promotions here that are like, if they sustain an injury, if they get a concussion, if they get like, a pointer, that if those things, those minor things, or not minor, major and minor, and they're not able to work, someone's going to take their spot. So they're more likely to sort of fake being well, fight through the pain. And that's going to, and very much like football. I mean, almost, what's the word? Parallel, like exactly like football. The mentality of losing your spot and focusing versus focusing on your health, that fundamental has to change. And it's going to be one of the toughest. It is the toughest fundamental to change because anyone who reports that said that they're hurt, you're considered soft. You're injury prone. Like you're a wimp. And you look at a guy like Daniel Bryan, and it's like, I don't know what's going on in his head. But I'd imagine he's been so trained, just like every other wrestler, to be so tough and to sort of stick things through. Because did you watch? It was on a SmackDown. I remember watching this. This is before I did the podcast. He was having a match with Randy Orton, and he had a pointer mid-match, and they called it off. And he's like, "Nah, man, fuck that. I'm wrestling."
Yeah.
And they were like, "Nah, you're not gonna wrestle, man. You're done."
Yeah, because that's I believe that there's a story that goes with that match where Daniel Bryan yelled at Triple H in the gorilla position for stopping his match.
Yeah.
And he was like, "You never stop my match," or something to that effect.
Did you see that match?
The Orton Daniel Bryan match?
Yeah, it was on SmackDown.
Then I probably didn't, because you know my philosophy on SmackDown.
Yeah, I was watching it because it was much more of a wrestling show then, but I was just like, I thought it was a work. I thought the whole thing was a work before I even knew what the word work was, you know what I'm saying? Wrestling terminology is becoming new and newer to me by this, now, but like even then I was just like, what the fuck? Are they really going to stop this match? And the way that Orton's face, I mean, I was like, whoa, this is real shit going on here. And it being a taped show, for them to even keep it in there like that, I was quite surprised. But again, I think this was them saying, okay, we care for our wrestlers' health regardless of the show. So, and kudos to them. But my God, there was
another incident similar to that, and it actually happened during Daniel Bryan's final match that he ever had, but it was on SmackDown. It was John Cena at the time he was the United States champion, teaming with Daniel Bryan, who at the time was the Intercontinental champion, taking on Tyson Kidd and Cesaro. And they were the tag team champions.
Yep.
Funny thing is that all four guys that I just mentioned currently injured.
Yeah.
But there was a point in that match where Daniel Bryan was on the outside of the ring, and he was laying down, and he was convulsing. And he said that he was hiding seizures from doctors so that doctors would clear him. There is a chance that he had a seizure during that match.
Crazy,
and
man.
If that's the case, then that's really scary, and I do not want him wrestling anymore.
Yeah.
No matter how selfish of a fan, and I've heard people say that it's bullshit that Daniel Bryan's retiring. While I agree, the fan side of me agrees, the human side of me says, I don't want this guy wrestling anymore if it's going to be damaging to his well-being.
Exactly.
He needs to get out now where he can still live a comfortable life, because that is the goal at the end of the day.
But don't you know that like you and me and people that have that sentiment, it's like less than 1%?
Oh yeah, because people are bloodthirsty. They just want to see violence in wrestling, and they don't care about they care about the characters. They don't care about the people behind the characters.
And that's why I'm, wax poeticing the idea of having that conversation of real life issues inside the wrestling world. You invest so much in the character, you don't care about convulsions. You don't care about seizures. You don't care about CTE and head trauma. I want to see chair shots. I want to see people go through tables. I want to see reverse Frankensteiners on the apron, right? On the ring apron. And
pile drivers on the apron.
Yeah, I've never been able to watch ECW. I couldn't tell you a single thing.
Yeah, I could back then, but it's cringeworthy now. Especially, there's a guy by the name of Masato Tanaka who had a famous feud with Mike Awesome. And there is a match that they had, I believe, at Heatwave 98, where Mike Awesome hits Masato Tanaka in the head with a chair 11 times. And Masato Tanaka never leaves. He's standing the entire time. He never leaves his feet.
Madness.
The whole gimmick with Masato Tanaka, and it's not a gimmick, it's legit, where he's got a tremendous pain threshold, and he can withstand that many shots to the head, but that's not something that a normal human being can do. But like looking at the Chris Benoit situation and what happened to him, I can't watch matches like that anymore because they make me cringe. Chair shots to the head ended a long time ago in the WWE. Triple H got fined $1,000 for hitting Undertaker in the head with a chair during their match at WrestleMania 27.
Yep.
Although the story is that Triple H told Vince that he was going to do that prior to the match even happening. So Vince knew, and then Triple H gave him the money before he even did it.
Yeah, just like the chair shots and blading and say what Batista he kicked out like $100,000 because it's policing.
My point was,
it's definitely policing.
Yeah, but my point is that chair shots in the WWE are no longer a thing. Chair shots on the indies need to fucking stop.
Yeah,
they really do, because you're damaging your brain. Is the most important organ in your body. You need to take care of it, and because if it's screwed up, then your whole well-being is screwed up.
And I also think about Mankind and the 20 shots he took from The Rock.
It was 13.
How the fuck does he still? It felt like 20. I wonder how he's able to manage after that. Now he has to feel the effects from that. Today.
Well, even like, did you ever see the documentary Beyond the Mat?
Yeah, I did.
He talks about having memory issues even then.
Yeah.
In like 1998, so it's 2000 when that movie came out. But who knows what he has now? It's got to be considerably worse. And in fact, when he wrote his first book, there is a diagram of Mankind on the back of his book, and it points to different parts of his body and how many times he's broken each bone. At the time this book was written, he had 8 concussions. Who knows how many he's had now?
Yeah. By now, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get off this dark cloud of a fucking issue. Let's move on to I guess the next step for Daniel Bryan because in his speech he speaks about starting a family with Brie. There's rumors that this may be Brie Bella's last match. Now, before you go into before you go into, Nathan Newman, the wrestling fan, I'm talking to Nathan Newman, the humanitarian, the good guy that we all know you to be, and where do you see? Because I guess I say that because most wrestling fans will be like, "Thank God, Brie, please leave." Blah 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 blah. You fucking suck. I'm saying.
Well, you totally just stole my point because I was going to say that exact same thing, but you just ruined it.
What's that?
No, honestly the human being in Brie. It's like we got to see her last week, not in character on Raw, and I was actually fine with it. If she wants to retire to pursue having a family with Daniel Bryan, then more power to her. Really, all the respect to the world. If she wants to do that, I don't have anything bad to say about it because it makes sense.
Well,
she has. It's not that she has nothing to contribute, but she's done everything that she's going to do in. WWE because there's nothing for women to do besides win the Divas title, and she's done that.
Yep.
So and her husband has done everything as well. So they might as well just both retire and enjoy life together.
Which is crazy because I think she's won the women's belt and she's won the Divas belt.
Both Nikki and Brie have won, or no, she never. Neither of the Bellas won the women's title.
Really?
They both won the Divas title.
I had this feeling that they both won. It was like
the women's title wasn't around when they were around.
I feel like one of them lifted that belt off of either Melina or off of Michelle McCool, and they were sort of like the co-champions. And I think they even had a necklace or some shit.
You're thinking about Lay Cool.
That's Lay Cool. The Bellas didn't do like a similar gimmick?
No.
All right.
In fact, I'm looking it up to see if they held the women's title at one point, but I don't believe they did.
Okay. Well, because, that's all I wanted to say. I think it would be good. I think what could possibly happen with the Bryans or the Danielsons or whatever the fuck they go by is that they can be ambassadors. They can be like, sort of an ambassador power couple to the WWE moving forward. And I think that would be really good because we don't have anything in terms of that outside of, say, what Triple H and Stephanie McMahon are. Like the first and second, the first lady and, and Daniel Bryan.
Sorry to interrupt, but both of the Bellas have never held the women's title.
Oh, okay. All right. But I think moving forward, everything will work out even better outside the ring for the two of them. We're talking about like people who has had a dark cloud looming over them outside of, say, the success of Total Divas. But I'm saying like personal, like Nikki having her neck shit go on, and her sister having to see that shit, and then her husband having to retire because of things, and then dealing with his issues, and Connor and his dad and all that stuff, man. I mean, it's been definitely a dark cloud over the both of them and what they've had to witness from themselves and from one another, and that like just a path towards like health and just making a difference in people's lives moving forward, working with the WWE. I think that's again, you said they already won the Divas belt. There's nothing more that she can really do.
Because there's nothing. I mean, there's different tiers if you're a man or if you're a male wrestler in the business, where you can win the tag titles, you can win the Intercontinental title, and then step up to the WWE title. But when you're a female, there's only one title to win.
Yep.
Once you win it, then you don't need to do anything else.
Yeah, you hit your ceiling.
And sometimes it happens faster than others.
I tell you what, whatever the fuck they produce is going to be one of the biggest baby faces that wrestling's ever seen. Rumors on returns to the WWE. We hear about Karma, the return of a possible Karma return.
That's talk about happening.
A Rey Mysterio return to the WWE, which I found to be very, very weird.
That's not going to happen either.
What else we got? Well, Bret Hart, his surgery is successful, his prostate cancer. Where were you when you got the news that he had to go have that surgery?
I didn't hear about it until later because I was at work. I can't be on Twitter and stuff when I'm at work.
Yeah. Titus Oneal suspension.
I watched the video and stuff like that, and the reason why he got suspended, it's apparently to make an example because there's been a lot of clowning around in the backstage area, but it's hard to not look at this thing and make it a race issue. It was originally 90 days. It has been reduced to 60 days, but still it's messed up if you think about it, because Titus Oneal, not in the company, but as far as like being an ambassador outside of the company, he's on the level of John Cena.
Mm-hmm.
He's like one of the really good guys in pro wrestling. And to punish him and not have him get a WrestleMania payday just seems wrong on so many levels.
Many.
They should have just slapped him on the wrist, said, hey, don't do that. Maybe suspend him for a week or have him miss Fastlane or whatever, but don't have him miss the biggest show of the year.
Yep.
Especially when your roster's already thin and you can't afford to lose anybody else. I just don't get it. And I hope that I wake up one of these days and WWE tweets something out and says the decision has been reversed and we're allowing Titus Oneal to come back early. But I don't think that's going to happen.
But you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of like telling a decent joke, not a bad joke, but a decent joke, but it goes over everyone's head, right? And then you have to explain why the joke is funny. And then it's like beyond not even funny anymore. That's what I look at this situation where it's like, well, we're gonna slap you with this 90-day suspension. Now we're gonna reduce it to 30, and now you know what? Nevertheless,
no, they reduced it to 60.
60, and now we're gonna just overturn it. It's like, well, the damage is already done. I think you've made yourselves out to be very petty and very silly and very stupid. I can understand the emotions are running high. You could talk about the unprofessionalism of it, whatever. You listen to Titus Oneal's case. It was basically him making light of a situation, but he was also being chivalristic. Like he was saying how Vince was walking out before Stephanie, and he was like ladies first or what have you.
Yeah, that's so you did hear about that because that's what I've heard as well.
Yeah, I heard about it.
And knowing the kind of person that Titus Oneal is, that is a very plausible situation. Yeah,
but it's plausible situation, but it's still a situation that doesn't really make a difference in the outcome. The guy's suspended. Whether it's 90 or 60 days, he's missing on a WrestleMania check. And you just go, even outside the WrestleMania check, the race conversation is that, well, what if Randy Orton would have done that? Now, not even Randy Orton. Let's just say like a mid.
He would have RKO'd Vince, though.
I know, right?
No, I'm kidding.
A mid-card white wrestler, would have, because it becomes a big what if. If my aunt had a penis, I call her uncle, the kind of thing. But the conversation is being the conversation. I don't feel like you can rule it out because of the history of dealing of how WWE deals with his black workers, and say you take what the punishments that's been dished out versus this punishment and at what stakes, and then the other punishment and at their stakes. You just go like, well, why would you? Is it a cost? I mean, would let's just say if fucking Bray Wyatt did it, or Luke Harper did that, like what would have the punishment been? Because apparently Vince was so angry at that moment that he actually considered firing Titus Oneal, and that him getting a 90-day suspension was him getting talked down. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how serious it was to him. And you talk about this old dude, this old out of touch fuck. I wouldn't be surprised that something lingering in the back of his mind is like, how dare this black person do this? Was at least a fraction in his head. I wouldn't be surprised at all. He's one of the good old boys. He's just like fucking Hogan. He's just like goddamn Piper. He's just like all those guys that has a history, or Ric Flair and P.S. Hayes, that have actual, have documented situations where race played into certain dialogue and certain actions. So I wouldn't be fucking surprised.
Yeah, neither would I. And that's what I'm saying. If Titus Oneal was white, or if someone else did this, let's say, like you said, Bray Wyatt would have done it, or like Bo Dallas or somebody who is white, would the stipulation or would the suspension be that steep? I don't think it would be.
No, I don't think there'd be a suspension at all. I almost think they'd be like, you're funny. What's going to happen is we're going to rib you in the back, or like give you a bullshit loss to the fuck is that bull? The little bull,
El Torito,
and then we're going to move forward from here.
Well, and then it's like they could have just said, okay, we're going to move you off of Raw and put you on Superstars for a month, which wouldn't be too far from what he's already doing, because he's been on Superstars. They put him on NXT about a year ago, and his NXT run was actually good. But it's just they could have done so much more than to just say, "Oh, you're suspended for 90 days and now 60 days."
Yeah, it's silly. It's silly. So, moving forward, your thoughts on the Even Stevens booking for AJ Styles Jericho?
Well, it doesn't really make AJ Styles stand out. And Jericho, I don't understand why he's being treated equally to AJ Styles, because he needs to, like, his last few runs have been where he wants to help the younger guys, and AJ's not a younger guy by any stretch of the imagination, but you would still think that he'd want to help him out, and it's not coming off that way at all to me. And 2016 Jericho, I couldn't care less about.
But don't you think somewhere floating in the back of his head is that being in a feud with Y2J? Hey, AJ Styles, you actually, me handpicking you to be in a feud with me is doing you a favor already.
Probably, but that's because Jericho's a douchebag.
He is a douchebag.
So he's probably thinking, "Oh, I'm going to do this, and it's going to make me look really good, and all whatever."
I would almost think that he would think he's giving the rub to AJ Styles as well.
But he's not, unless the end goal is for them to have a third match at WrestleMania and for AJ Styles to go over. There's no rub there.
I don't see. Fuck, man. I mean, tonight is the go home show, right?
To Fastlane.
Yeah. And I don't see a match between the two of them going to WrestleMania. I mean, did you get to watch that match?
Yeah, I did.
It was badass.
Yeah, it was really good.
It was a pay-per-view.
I had something going on Thursday nights, which I usually do. So I went and I did that, and then I came home and I watched SmackDown. I watched the first tag match because it was Jericho and AJ taking on two members of the Social Outcasts.
The House Cats.
And then that match ended up having a schmoz finish. And then they decided that, AJ Styles and Chris Jericho are going to wrestle later. Somebody on my timeline told me, they said, fast forward to the main event because nothing else on this show matters.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I did.
But other than the Bully Ray promo, I think
he's still Bubba Ray.
I know, but this was definitely,
and he's still somebody I don't care about.
Yeah, I mean, I've expressed that I don't care about a heel turn from the Dudleys because I mean, it's not like they've been. I don't know. It's just a weird thing that's going on that where they haven't positioned themselves in a way that I fucking care. But it took me to see that promo from Bubba Ray to see, and you know, they're no more tables. You know, they're going to full on heel, not giving the people what they want, and I'm intrigued to see where they go. But they've been the ass wipes for the New Day and the Wyatts for a while, and it's kind of hard for me to take them serious going after another tag team that's been ass wipes to the New Day. So I'm just like, well, we'll see what comes out of it. Everyone's talking about, you know, Enzo and Kaz coming down to feud with them. I'm like, no. I just don't see the significance of a heel Dudley outside of the nostalgia act that, you know, they came back as, maybe get a rub to get that 10th championship, but that never happened. So I don't care about them. You know, it's like, well, anyway. But that was the only other thing really worth seeing because it was a really good fucking promo.
Yeah.
But I get tired of this Even Stevens booking because, like, a la Kevin Owens and John Cena. It's like, why? Whatever happened to this idea? It's like just a newcomer, just feed him for like 6, 7, 8, 10 weeks. Just a bunch of dudes that normally face catering on a regular basis, right?
Yeah.
Why can't that happen? Why can't
because the era of that happening is over.
I mean, I know that, but it's still.
There was a match on ROH this last Saturday where that kind of happened, where it was reminiscent of like a late 80s, early 90s enhancement match where one guy took on a guy that was pretty much an unknown, but like WWE will not do that. Because it was Mark Briscoe facing some guy that I can't even remember the name of, but was a local in whatever town that they were in that they showed on TV.
Joe Local?
No.
No, just saying, that's his name. I mean, like Joe Local. Like that's.
But I can't. Like I reviewed the match and it'll be up later on EyesOnTheRing.com. Cheap plug, but the match really didn't do anything for me. And as far as like I said during that review, it's like that match could have been cut out completely, and I would have been fine with it. But it's like if they do that in WWE, the only reason to do that in WWE is to build a guy up. Like Goldberg, for instance, they fed him a bunch of jobbers.
Yeah, because
and then eventually got him ready to be in the U.S. title picture, and then win the title, and then go and win the world title. But
there's a difference.
You're not going to see that anymore.
Well, there's a difference between, say, feeding Joe Local to an established guy.
They did it to Ryback as well.
Yeah, they did that. That was actually pretty cool. But we got to know Ryback. We got to know his style set. We got to know his finishers. We got to know his gimmick. We got to know all these things. I mean, since AJ's returned, we've been teasing his Styles Clash. You know, we got his calf crusher or whatever the fuck they want to call it now. We haven't really been built to know why he's a badass. You know, he's been tossed
because
into
WWE doesn't tell us that stuff.
Yeah, he's been
and that's
tossed,
the problem. That's the huge disconnect.
Yeah, he's been tossed in this sort of high profile enough match feud to where, you know, something I disagreed with too was that, you know, when AJ beat Jericho, it was him barely squeaking by. It was just a fluke roll up in a pin, and then Jericho wins dominantly with his codebreaker finish. And if I'm looking at the tail of the tape, I'm looking at Jericho as being more of as a stronger presence in this feud than AJ Styles, someone who got out the first time around by basically sheer luck and circumstance. A codebreaker versus a roll-up, man. If you're one of the two, if you had to pick between one of the two to win, which one would you pick?
A codebreaker?
You damn right you will, because it makes you look dominant.
Yeah.
And also the whole like redneck Ricky thing.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Well, and here's another thing. JBL, when AJ first debuted, or not when he first debuted at the Rumble, but like his first match on SmackDown, said, quote, if it doesn't happen in WWE, it doesn't matter. Or maybe it was Jerry Lawler. But
that was Jerry Lawler.
This last Thursday, you had Mauro Ranallo actually tell us that AJ Styles is, I believe, a 5-time former world champion. Because he mentioned the 3 NWA TNA world title runs, as well as the 2-time former IWGP heavyweight champion. And I'm pretty sure that somebody in the back probably talked Mauro down from that because it completely contradicted what they had said about AJ a few weeks ago.
All I'm saying is this. When it comes to what I'm discovering more about Ranallo is that, like, WWE better tread lightly with this kid. He's going in as a favor to the WWE. He wants to do it, but like it's not like he needs the WWE. He wants to do this. So
I know. And he's great.
Yeah, calling moves and all that shit. Like WWE, maybe he was talked down to not talk about, you know, ROH or say TNA or anything like that. But he definitely brings up IWGP stuff. He brings that up. and he also defends the living shit out of AJ Styles. You know, he gets real defensive about AJ Styles.
And I don't blame him because he's trying to do his job. Mm-hmm. And the other two goofs in JBL and Jerry Lawler are trying to bury the shit out of this guy.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make Morrow look like garbage.
Because it's one thing to be heel too. It's one thing to be like Bobby the Brain Heenan, whose job, or Heel King even, during the Attitude Era, his whole thing was to stack the odds on whoever babyface is, and say Jim Ross or Gorilla Monsoon was basically defending him, right? But it doesn't give off the same. It's not that same. We're going to stack the odds. The gimmick is we're going to stack the odds against this young fellow trying to make a name for himself in our company. I mean, they are outright saying things that you don't want to say about anyone, whether you like them or not. You know, it's not doing him any justice by calling him a redneck rookie. It's not. It's not, because he's not walking out looking like fucking. He's not walking out looking like damn. Fucking beer money, you know what I'm saying?
When he's not a rookie.
No, I'm talking about the redneck part. The redneck part. That really throws me back. Unless he's coming out seriously looking like goddamn Billy Ray Cyrus.
They're talking about. They're not talking about his look. They're talking about his accent.
But we have it as a casual. Let's just say we're casuals. Have we even heard enough of fucking AJ Styles to even determine that in the WWE?
Well, since I'm not a casual, then yes, I would say we've heard enough.
He hasn't.
You only have to hear him once.
But he hasn't said anything
to know that. Yes, he has. He's done interviews.
I'm talking about during the show. Like the first time he got to speak, he got interrupted by Chris Jericho. Then he did the Miz TV spot where he didn't get a single word in, and then
he talked enough to where you know what he sounds like.
No, I disagree with that. Because here's the thing, and I'm so pro AJ Styles here because it's a refreshing thing.
Well, so am I.
And I'm definitely someone who watches SmackDown, and I'm really paying attention to how they handle him, because it's like, I really don't want them to fuck this up. And I will say, he hasn't said anything. I mean, nothing. Like, nothing. I wouldn't consider a sentence him saying something. Like, this Thursday, he actually cut a promo in the back where he admits to being a proud redneck. And I go like, fuck, man. I can't. What are you doing? But then he goes, I'm no rookie. And I go, I understand that. If you go back and listen to that heel shoot that King does on him, because he starts off, he's like, don't you know that I've won the most world championships of any wrestler alive today, you know? And he goes, well, none of that meant crap when I came to the WWE. I had this championship, I've won these matches, but when I came into the WWE, it was like none of it ever happened. And that's what Ronaldo, you want to talk about, he's done this over here and done that over there. That means nothing here. And it's because WWE is where basically the big boys play, and he's starting from ground zero in this company. So whatever he's done prior to that is irrelevant. And I go, fuck. It was the...
I hate that mentality.
It was a shoot. That was a shoot.
That was Vince talking through Lawler's earpiece and telling him to say that. But
Vince doesn't have control of SmackDown, or he doesn't. The person in the producer of SmackDown is, who the fuck is it?
Kevin Dunn.
I don't think Dunn I think Dunn is Raw. I think it's someone else that takes.
No, he does Kevin Dunn does all the production.
I mean, I know the
both Raw and SmackDown.
I'm talking about the guy in the person's ear.
Yeah, that's Kevin Dunn.
For some reason, I feel like it's someone. I know Kevin's one of them, but I feel like it's they've given that to someone else as well, to where it's not as plug heavy as Raw that he does to Michael Cole or say or JBL to a certain extent. But I felt like nobody was in Jerry King Lawler's ear when he said that. I think he said that because he's like, fuck these guys coming in from these indie promotions and thinking they can just run the shit, you know? I don't even think he particularly likes Kevin Owens.
Yeah, I don't know what his stance on a lot of indie guys are.
He hates them all.
And the only reason why they're there is because of Triple H.
Yeah.
I think he has some secret resentment towards his own son-in-law for bringing all these guys in. I honestly do.
Who?
Vince.
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously. But that's the thing. That's why we call people like him out of touch. Because this isn't the same. This ain't your daddy's WWE. This ain't your granddaddy's wrestling anymore. I think I will agree that I think the wrestlers are getting too small, but we're dealing with a new day and age, and there needs to be big guys found. Braun Strowman, I think, is a bit of a stretch. I'm
just glad the Undertaker Braun Strowman match that we were going to see at WrestleMania 32 is no longer happening. Thank God.
I didn't think they were going to actually run with it in the first place.
There was a point where I thought they were going to, but now I'm hearing that there's something else that they have in mind.
I wouldn't at all believe. I never believed it in the first place.
But can you imagine, can you imagine like this possibly being Undertaker's last WrestleMania and his last opponent at WrestleMania and for his last match being Braun Strowman?
No, I never bought into that.
I did at one because it could have happened because we didn't have barely anybody on the roster. We still don't.
You know,
so Braun Strowman wasn't that big of a stretch.
If I say this ain't just some dude. This is fucking the Undertaker. And you mean to tell me you could open up a box of fucking Crayola, right? And you could find the green goddamn Crayola in there, right? And that son bitch doesn't say green. It says Braun Strowman, right? You're not gonna do that to you're not gonna do that to the Undertaker. You're just not going to do that. Like whatever rumor
I wouldn't put it past the company.
I would,
especially now since the streak is over.
I would.
When the streak was a thing, and when they were really playing it up, no,
I would.
But with the streak being over, they can put him in throwaway match.
No, I would see him more. Like I would agree more that it would have happened via Brock Lesnar rather than Undertaker. You're not going to do that. Vince McMahon is not going to do that to the Undertaker. I guarantee. Like that was never even like a thought. Whatever. Even if it's true, I'm gonna be stubborn as fuck and just refuse to believe it. Straight up. Like, are you serious? Braun Strowman, even in the same building as an Undertaker? I just think that's a weird thing. And I understand they did the whole, Brothers of Destruction versus the Wyatts, but I'm saying that was a whole different other monster. And it was, it was Luke Harper that was carrying most of the weight because he's able to do that, And Bray Wyatt, too, he has pedigree in him. I think that's the only reason why they even fed Undertaker to him in the first place, because he has pedigree. Rotunda and his grandfather, what the hell is his name? He just had a heart attack.
Wyndham.
Wyndham, yeah. Blackjack Mulligan. So he has enough pedigree and enough, Braun Strowman. Jesus Christ. Okay, so if there's one more thing worth mentioning and calling this a wrap is, I will say, what's up with Ryback? Like, what should something I forgot to bring up even prior is that, like, Batista got in touch with Titus Oneal on Twitter and told him to quit.
Yeah. Batista's an idiot.
Should he also send that tweet to Ryback?
No, he's probably not going to, because you have to remember that Batista and Titus Oneal are really good friends.
Yeah.
And Batista and Ryback probably aren't. So, of course, he's not going to send that same tweet to Ryback, because why would he?
No, I'm just saying. I mean, I guess I'm not talking. damn, you took that literal as hell. I was saying the idea that Ryback, as much as he's trying, he's even altered his look. Even though there was this huge backlash, the Goldberg thing with the black trunks and no more onesie. he's doing his best, man. And he lost to the fucking Social Outcast. Heath Slater. He lost to Heath fucking Slater.
Yep, and I didn't really understand it, because if you want to reintroduce Ryback, the last thing you want to have him do is lose.
Especially with this new look.
Yeah. Because, they ran a vignette for the guy, for God's sake. And they hyped him up. And then he has this match and he loses.
Like a chump.
It was extremely weird.
And not only does he lose a match, he gets demolished by the Wyatt family. Yeah. Yep. Because he beats Rowan, and then that happened on SmackDown, and then, oh man, what are you doing with this guy? I don't get it.
They don't know. That's the problem.
And I guess the point I was making is should Batista send him the tweet? Because do you really think that Ryback actually has a chance in the WWE moving forward?
I never did to begin with. If you want to go back all the way to 2012 when that was having his lengthy title run, and he faced Ryback in Hell in a Cell.
Yep.
Ryback should have won that match.
That's the Rogue match, too.
Looking back at it, Ryback should have won that match, because it completely... And I remember reading reports and hearing reports that they didn't know how they were going to handle that match, because they needed CM Punk to keep the title, but they didn't want Ryback to lose. And they made Ryback look like a bitch.
Well, it's Maddox.
And then
and
then they had that thing with that stupid idiot Brad Maddox, who I think is still stuck in a cave, last I heard. But it just didn't make any sense. And the storyline that they were going to do anyway fell through, because that was supposed to be CM Punk, Brad Maddox, and the Shield all in one group, and it never happened. So they pretty much sacrificed Ryback and made him look like shit when they never had any long-term plans to capitalize on it, or to do anything with his loss,
and thus starting his loss at pay-per-views. I think since he's debuted, he only has one pay-per-view win, and that was him falling.
I'd have to look to see what his win-loss record is, but I'm not that crazy of a wrestling fan where I'm going to pay attention to that many wins and losses.
Well, at first I did, because I thought at some point it's like, well, what are you going to do with this guy? Are you going to give him a pay-per-view win or what? And I honestly, and if he does have one, I can't really recall what it is. I think he doesn't have a single win on a pay-per-view. Not a single win.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you either way.
Yeah.
Right. I know he hasn't won that many, but I can't tell you how many he's won or how many he hasn't won.
Pay-per-view? I'll put $5 on the fact he hasn't won one.
But he hasn't really been in that many meaningful matches anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, so I don't think he owns a single pay-per-view win. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and wrap this fucker up, man. That was a lot of wrestling talking. Do your plugs, homie.
Hold on. I'm trying to look something up because I want to see if I can even find it. It's not gonna, because I'm looking to see what his win-loss record is.
I guess while you're looking,
he's won on pay-per-view, but it was very early when he was still facing jobbers.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. I'm talking about big angle matches. So yeah. All right. I hear you.
He defeated Chris Jericho at Money in the Bank 2013.
Wow. Okay.
SummerSlam 2013, he did not compete. Lost to CM Punk twice at Battleground Hell in a Cell. Lost at Survivor Series 2013. And that's all that this has. But at that point, his record was 5-11-1. So he's, and it's funny because they often refer to him as Goldberg, but he's like the opposite of Goldberg. But anyway, and I'll get into my plugs. You can follow me.
Wait,
on
one
Twitter.
more thing.
Yeah.
Are you buying this early John Cena return?
Yes, I am, because they need him.
Mm.
He's going to face the Undertaker at WrestleMania 32.
So he got his hands on some of that HGH that Peyton Manning had, huh?
Something like that, yeah.
Christ, this is not going to end pretty.
I think he's stupid for wanting to come back that early, but because he's going to eventually break again. But I am at this point convinced that he's a robot, because he keeps coming back so early from injury. Yeah. And I think the reason why he does it, I honestly think Vince McMahon calls him and gives him a raise or gives him some side money and says, I need you to come back.
Yeah. I saw the tweet. I saw his tweet earlier today about taking risk, gambles.
Do you think there's a chance we see him on Raw tonight?
I would love to see him on Raw tonight. Honestly,
so would
I will he be on Raw tonight? No. There's no real place for him, I guess, until I see him showing up after Fastlane. I see him showing up at the Fastlane.
And when do you see The Undertaker showing up?
I don't see him showing up anymore until... Yeah.
So you think they're going to do what they did last year with his match with Bray Wyatt, where he doesn't show up at all, he just shows up at WrestleMania?
Hey, depending on who they got him facing.
If it's John Cena, they're going to have to build the match. John Cena can build the match by himself, but I don't like the idea of that happening.
Oh, I want to see that John Cena Undertaker match. I totally want to see it.
I think it would have meant more had it happened at WrestleMania 30 and the streak was still a thing, but because that's the match that John Cena wanted at WrestleMania 30.
Oh yeah, you talk about heat.
Yeah, well, he petitioned hard for that match, but I'm not and he obviously didn't get it. I'm not sure if he would have broken the streak had that match happened. But
the heat on him possibly doing it. Oh.
But the story is that The Undertaker... Do you remember the confrontation that Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker had?
Yeah.
At that UFC pay-per-view?
You want to go?
Yeah, he said you want to do it. And Ariel Helwani, after the confrontation, asked him what he was talking about, and he said a personal favor. And the long-standing urban legend was that they were secretly talking about the streak. And The Undertaker wanting Brock to come back to wrestling so he could break the streak.
Yeah, I remember because it was sort of weird because Brock Lesnar wasn't even conscious to even hear that. They had motherfuckers carrying him, and he was like, his eyes were in the back of his skull. I always wonder why people made it such a big deal where you talk about Brock Lesnar wasn't even in a situation where he could even respond or even like take in what was actually being asked of him. I always thought that was pretty funny. But I think you could, in fact, get Cena and get Undertaker's not going to not show up if his feud with Cena going into WrestleMania. It's no way possible.
Yeah.
I still think this is a match that's like, hey, they're both here. Let's just do it. You know? And it could work out. I don't see it being anywhere worth a failure. You know? I think it would be probably, just probably, one of the best matches that the both of them can get out of each other. Because we got, the Brock Lesnar match feud, and then you also had like the John Cena Open Challenge. And I think
that they've only wrestled each other once. So this match would be fresh.
So wild. I know. It's hard to believe. It was at Vengeance 2003, I think. 2003. That's what I remember hearing the last time they faced. And it's like, wow, man, 13 years ago? It's like, well, fuck that 2013 match. This is as new as this is real new as the next second.
2003. You mean?
Yeah, 2003. I meant to say. Sorry, but yeah, why not, man? I just want to see it. I think again, the streak being on the line, the heel heat that John Cena could get from it could be a possible turn per se, but maybe just maybe it's even that much more possible now for Cena to turn heel, being that Roman Reigns is going to be your meal ticket moving forward.
Yeah, I still don't like that idea, but
and I'll say this: we've talked for an hour and 35 minutes, and that was the first reference to Roman Reigns,
which shows you how much we both care about the guy.
We talk about Dean Ambrose. We ain't talk about none of that shit. So that's what's up. Let's conclude this episode 20 of the Neu Daye Podcast. Go and get your plugs in, big man.
You can follow me on Twitter at Headliner5. Follow Eyes on the Ring at Eyes on the Ring. EyesOnTheRing.com will be going through a makeover, getting a new template because we have to renew the domain. So there's going to be a lot of changeover and with the website. There's some stuff that's going to go on with the podcast as far as guests and stuff. I'm not going to mention any names. I know who they are, but I'm not going to mention who they are until they are concrete and they're
then why even bring it up?
Going to happen.
Then why even bring it up?
So people know that it's out there and it's a possibility of happening.
Oh yeah, something's going to happen, but I'm not going to say anything's going to happen. But I know what's happening. But I'm not going to tell you what's happening. But I'm going to let you know that something is happening.
I just can't mention any names right now because if it doesn't happen, there's no point in even mentioning it if it's not going to happen.
But you already brought it up. So the suspense is since you're planting the seed of suspense, and whether or not things go through or not, you still got people waiting on you that something is going to happen.
Exactly. Stay tuned.
But what if it doesn't happen?
Then it doesn't happen.
Then it becomes SmackDown.
No, it just doesn't happen. And yeah, SmackDown sucks.
SmackDown.
And then, of course, read my reviews on EyesOnTheRing.com for Ring of Honor. A new one should be posted pretty soon, covering the show from this last Saturday. Also, I am writing now for WrestlingHeads.com. I'm doing a weekly CMLL match of the week where I watch the match and I talk about it and give a recommendation on whether or not I would watch it. The last match I did was Caristico taking on Rush from the last CMLL TV show.
Rush.
So go check that on
Tom Sawyer Rush?
What?
Tom Sawyer Rush?
No.
My name word the beat day today Tom Sawyer beat I love
Go to bed, Grandpa.
I love Rush.
But anyway, you just proved you're an old man. But that's pretty much it for me. And I will be on the Eyes on the Ring account tonight watching Raw and suffering through it for all the good of humanity.
I have high hopes for this Raw. I actually have high hopes that it's actually going to manifest itself to be an actual good show. We got the Daniel Bryan thing out of the way. I think they did that. Obviously, it was in Washington, but I think they just needed to clear out. They needed to clear everything out moving forward, and that was one of the major elephants in the room that needed to be addressed. So now they can move forward. I think it's going to make a big difference. It's going to make a huge difference. I think tonight's going to be good. PJTW Central, Twitter, also Ellen Japanese, LINJAPANESC. and that is Twitter, that's Instagram, and that's also Snapchat if you have Snapchat.
One thing I forgot to mention is you can follow me on Instagram at Headliner005, and I also have a Periscope, which is the same as my Twitter.
That's awesome. You don't have a Snapchat?
What's Snapchat?
Never mind. I actually make Snap Code apparel, dude. That's one of my things, where you can actually walk up to a person and add them from their outfit.
I know what Snapchat is. It's just the stupidest thing ever, so I have nothing to do with it.
It's fun. But check this out. PJTW Central content, what you're listening to now, the Neu Daye Podcast, on YouTube only, Peter's Raw Recap. Tuesday, the return. Tomorrow I will talk Peyton Manning tomorrow on Peter Talks Sports and Super Bowl. You have Peter and Jake Talks Wrestling Podcast. We are we always get the episode wrong. I think we're 79, episode 79 this Wednesday, Peter and Jake Talks Wrestling, where we're going to review a very lackluster New Beginning at Osaka, and then we're also going to talk about this Go Home show, and then Peter Talks SmackDown, which will be this Saturday, and I will be discussing the return of Brock Lesnar to WWE SmackDown. So that should be interesting. That should be really, really interesting. And that's about it, man. Again, thank you so much for listening. You could do one of, let's say, I think 4 things. A, you can leave a comment below, whether you're listening on, whatever device or whatever have you, whether it's YouTube, whether it's SoundCloud, whether it's Stitcher Radio that sucks ass right now.
It actually is back up.
Oh, it's back up now?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was out. There was an outage for 7 freaking days.
Well, I tried to open it up a second ago, maybe right before we started this podcast.
Hold on, let me see something. It just popped up for me.
Okay, so
but none of my feeds, nothing on any of my feeds are new. Like Peter and Jake Talks Wrestling is from 5 days ago. Keita and Jay Show is from 5 days ago. Voices of Wrestling is from 5 days ago. Shake Them Ropes is 5 days ago. 4C Radio is February 4th. And then the Elite Podcast Network is the last thing posted on there was the Uncle Mike and Tom show. So Eyes in the Ring from last night.
So they definitely. Well, I would say 30 minutes before we recorded, it was down because I tried to open up and try to listen.
Yeah, because I tried to open up earlier today too.
Yeah. So, God damn it, Stitcher. Oh, anyway, whether you're on Stitcher, iTunes, Podbean, and SoundCloud, leave a comment. You can do another thing. You can hit that subscription button. Hit the subscription button and add us to your playlist. Again, any of those fucking mediums. You also can you can hit the heart. You could hit the thumbs up button. You could hit give 5-star rating. You do all these things to say, hey, within the logarithms in the world of sports and wrestling talk, that we're actually worth fucking listening to. And then the most important thing, folks, the most important thing you could do to any and all podcasts within your social media means is to share. Use your fucking Twitter. Use your Instagram. Use your Snapchat. Use your goddamn... Use any and everything. Your Pinterest. All that shit. Just copy the link and share. There's even a share option right below. You can just hit boom. It's a little box and it has an arrow that point up. And it gives you the option to share that shit. That will do between what we do over here on PJTW and what they do over the Eyes on the Ring. It works miracles, okay? And that's about it. Any last words there, Mr. Newman?
Well, one plug I forgot is facebook.com/Eyes on the Ring, but that's pretty much if you don't have access to the website for some reason, you can just go to that website or facebook.com/Eyes on the Ring, and it'll link you to all the articles on the website. And so that's one thing I forgot to mention, but...
A non-wrestling plug for myself is if you're listening, you do have a Snapchat and you want to wear your Snap code on either a shirt or a hoodie or something like that, or if you want, you're a Panthers fan and you want a unique Panthers design shirt, or you live in Greensboro and you want to represent your city, stop by cutthemusic.etsy.com. That is my shop where I sell these silly little gimmicks. Again, Cut the Music, which is fitting, I guess, for the fact that I'm a wrestling fan, and Cut the Music. I always have to explain that.
You
to people.
cut yourself?
No, like when I have to tell people what it means, like cut the music. What do you mean? I was like, well, that's what the heels say. The bad. I have to dumb it down. I was like, the bad
Rick
guy,
Rude.
huh?
Rick Rude always used to say that.
Yeah, like whenever the bad guy in wrestling wants to speak and his music is still playing, that's what he screams. Cut the music. So go check out that if you can. Support a brother and his means to do nice things. T-shirts are the new crack. So, without further ado, hey, Nathan.
Yeah.
Watch out for those foreign objects, okay?
Yeah, you too.
And you too, as well, the listener. See you next week for episode 21. Peace.
See ya.